Loyalty isn't a halo. It's a chain with paperwork, most of it unsigned, most of it written in your blind spots. You were trained to treat loyalty like morality. Stay, endure, forgive, prove you're solid. That training didn't make you noble. It made you predictable. And predictable men are easy to manage. A predictable man can be guilted, pressured, shamed, and pulled back as to the pen with a single word: loyal. Here's the lens shift. Loyalty is not a feeling. It's an exchange. Every "we're brothers," every "ride or die," every "after all I've done for you" is a clause. The moment loyalty becomes a public badge, it stops being devotion and becomes ownership signaling. Wolves don't ask the sheep to celebrate the fence. Real loyalty is quiet, voluntary, and adaptive. It doesn't need applause. It doesn't require you to bleed to prove you're worthy of belonging. When someone demands loyalty, they're not asking for commitment. They're testing whether you'll surrender your sovereignty. You need to stop evaluating loyalty with your heart and start evaluating it like a strategist. The contract model, cold and useful. Every relationship, friendship, workplace alliance, romance, family, is a contract with 4 moving parts. Terms: what is expected of you and what is offered in return. Enforcement: what happens when you don't comply. Exit clause: whether you're allowed to leave without punishment. Renegotiation: whether your no can exist without retaliation. Weak men obsess over whether they're being good. Strong men obsess over terms and enforcement, because predators rarely sell you evil. They sell you duty. They sell you history. They sell you identity. You're not the kind of guy who leaves, and that's the trap. If your identity is glued to staying, you've already been captured. You can be worked like a lever. Moral inversion: the poisoned lesson you inherited. You were taught good equals loyal, leaving equals betrayal, boundaries equals selfishness, silence equals immaturity, endurance equals strength. In reality, in the world that actually selects men, good is often just obedient. Leaving is often self-preservation. Boundaries are border control. Silence is strategic concealment. Endurance is useless if you're enduring the wrong war. Loyalty without conditions is not virtue. It's a blank check, and blank checks get cashed by whoever has the least conscience. The first test: who benefits from your loyalty? Ask one question and don't flinch from the answer. When they say, be loyal, do they mean be aligned, or do they mean be compliant? Aligned means you both win, both protect, both carry weight, both respect the other's autonomy. Compliant means you absorb costs so they can keep comfort, status, control, or access. If loyalty consistently moves resources from you to them, time, attention, money, reputation, emotional labor, then you're not in a bond. You're in a supply arrangement. The second test: loyalty to what? Principles or people? Loyalty to principles is stable. Loyalty to a person's ego is a rotating door. A principled alliance sounds like, we don't lie to each other, we don't expose each other, we handle issues privately. An ego alliance sounds like, you'll back me no matter what. You'll take my side, even when I'm wrong. You'll prove it. The first is a pact. The second is a leash. The third test: the exit tax watch. What happens when you step back? When you say no? When you need space? When you stop performing? Healthy loyalty allows distance without punishment. Weaponized loyalty imposes an exit tax. Smear campaigns, guilt, rage, public shaming. After everything, sudden coldness, sudden threats. That reaction is your receipt. It tells you the truth. You weren't valued as a man. You are valued as a position, a role. to be filled. This chapter is not telling you to distrust everyone. It's telling you to stop worshiping a word. Loyalty is a contract. Read it. Next, you'll learn how the contract is forged, how obligation is manufactured like debt. Control rarely begins with force. It begins with a favor. A favor looks harmless because it's wrapped in warmth. But the function isn't kindness, it's placement. The moment you accept, you're no longer just a man in their world. You're an entry in their ledger, and ledgers are made to be collected. This is the core mechanism. They manufacture debt, then rebrand repayment as loyalty. You think you're choosing devotion. You're actually responding to an invoice you never agreed to. The ledger game, how the chain gets forged. They don't say, I want leverage. They say, I looked out for you. I put you on. I defended you. I was there when nobody was. These are not memories. They're receipts. The ledger game has one rule. Your contributions are treated as normal. Theirs are treated as sacred. You're expected to give because you're solid. They give once, then convert it into lifelong access to your time, attention, choices, and silence. That's not loyalty. That's debt peonage. The three tools of debt manufacturing. This is the surgery. Clean cuts, clear labels. 1. Loaded generosity. They give you something you didn't request, or they over-deliver on purpose. Not because they're noble, because over-delivery creates obligation pressure. If you refuse the favor, you look cold. If you accept it, you become indebted. This is why some help feels heavy. It's not a gift, it's a collar. 2. Moral accounting. They frame relationships like a courtroom. Who's done more, who's sacrificed more, who deserves compliance. The moment someone starts counting, they're not bonding, they're building a prosecution. Every time you assert a boundary, they don't address the boundary. They present a spreadsheet of your alleged sins. After all I've done. That phrase is a syringe. It injects guilt so they can extract obedience. 3. Reputation, hostage, taking. They position themselves as the guardian of your image. I vouched for you. I told people you were different. Don't make me look stupid. Now your identity is tied to their approval. If you disobey, you're not just saying no. You're betraying the story they sold others. And many men will sacrifice their freedom to avoid being labeled disloyal. Predators know this. They don't need to beat you. They just need to brand you. Why this works on you, and most men, because you confuse gratitude with submission. A man with weak internal authority needs external confirmation that he's good. Debt manufacturing exploits that hunger. It turns your conscience into a steering wheel they can grab with 2 fingers. Also, you're trained to fear social exile. The tribe used to be survival. So when someone implies, if you leave, you're not one of us, your nervous system treats it like a wilderness sentence. Modern control doesn't require chains. It requires social threat, the loyalty test that exposes the trap. Here's the clean diagnostic. Do they respect repayment on your terms, or do they demand repayment on theirs? Healthy exchange allows time, distance, and boundaries. Weaponized exchange demands immediate compliance, secrecy, or self-sacrifice, usually when it benefits them and costs you. If you ever feel like you must pay with your silence, your principles, your relationships, your autonomy, your future, then it was never a favor. It was a down payment. The real lesson: you don't owe loyalty to generosity. You owe loyalty to integrity and reciprocity, and only when the contract is mutual, explicit, and free to exit. Debt manufacturing thrives in fog. vague expectations, unspoken rules, emotional pressure. Once you see the ledger, the spell breaks. Next, we name the patterns, the 3 loyalty signals, so you can spot the trap before it closes. These aren't red flags. That language is for people who still think life is a dating app. These are loyalty signals, and they exist for one reason: to see whether you can be governed. When you notice them, don't argue, don't explain. You observe, confirm, exit. Predators don't negotiate terms. They negotiate your perception of terms. Signal 1. They demand a declaration. It starts as a joke and ends as a ritual. Are you with me or not? Prove you're solid. Say it. Loyalty first. The content doesn't matter. The function is the same: public submission. Declarations are not for bonding. Declarations are for control architecture. Once you say it out loud, you've handed them a weaponized label. Now any boundary you set can be framed as betrayal. You're not disagreeing, you're switching up. You're not leaving, you're fake. Watch the staging. They ask for loyalty when others are present, or when you're cornered, tired, or emotionally charged. That's not sincerity. That's a loyalty trap with witnesses, a courtroom designed to make no socially expensive. What it means: they're building a hierarchy with you below them. What it costs: your right to disagree without punishment. Your move: refuse the ritual. Keep it clean and dry. I don't do declarations, I do actions. Then step back and watch their reaction. If they escalate, you just confirmed the mechanism. Signal 2. They keep a ledger and call it love. You'll hear it in the phrasing: after all I've done, I put you on. I defended you. Don't forget who was there. That's not memory, that's billing. A healthy bond doesn't need invoices. When someone counts favors, they're not being loyal, they're being invested, and invested people expect returns. The return they want is usually not money. It's access, your time, your silence, your compliance, your presence on command. This signal often shows up right when you try to create distance. You say, "I'm not doing that," and they don't address the request. They pull out the ledger to prove you owe them. It's emotional debt collection, like a loan shark wearing a friend's face. What it means: they're converting goodwill into leverage. What it costs: your autonomy becomes ungratefulness. Your move: never debate the ledger. Debating validates it. You simply end the transaction. If help comes with conditions, it's not help. Don't do me favors. Then you reduce access. Signal 3. They isolate you through us versus them. This one is quieter and deadlier. They start shaping your relationships like a battlefield. Don't talk to him. She's against you. If you're with me, you can't be cool with them. Loyalty becomes exclusivity, and exclusivity becomes dependency. Isolation isn't always physical. It can be psychological. They make you feel watched. They punish you for being neutral. They demand you take sides in conflicts that aren't yours. They feed you a steady diet of enemies, so your world shrinks down to one safe zone: them. This is how they become your gatekeeper. Once your other alliances are weakened, they can raise the price of access. Now they can mistreat you and still keep you, because you don't have a clean exit route. A man without options is a man who can be managed. What it means: they want monopoly rights over your attention and identity. What it costs: your network, your sanity, your ability to leave. Your move: keep your alliances private and intact. Don't announce your moves. Don't argue about sides. You say, "I don't do factions. I decide for myself." If they retaliate, you don't plead, you detach. the rule that ties all three together. If loyalty requires performance, payment, or isolation, it's not loyalty. It's ownership training. Next chapter, we deepen the threat. Why these tactics are ancient, why they work on groups, and why good men are the easiest to colonize. Loyalty demands don't come from love. They come from hierarchy maintenance. Every human group, tribe, office, friend circle, family, creates status lanes, and the fastest way to enforce status is to control who's in and who's out. The loyalty ritual is just the modern uniform. Same old chain, new paint. This is why your rational arguments fail when loyalty is invoked. You're not debating logic. You're standing in a dominance ceremony where the point is to see if you'll kneel. In primitive terms, groups survive by punishing defectors and rewarding conformers. That's not moral, that's biological accounting. So when someone frames you as disloyal, they aren't trying to win an argument. They're trying to trigger the ancient fear of exile. They're pressing a button that predates your opinions. Predators understand this instinctively. They don't need to be smart. They just need to be shameless. How this shows up in the real world. Same pattern, different costume. 1. The crew and the street logic. In any tight male group, loyalty is currency, and currency attracts counterfeiters. The lighter or loudest man will demand declarations, punish neutrality, and treat dissent as betrayal. The goal isn't unity, it's centralization. If you can't disagree without consequences, you're not in a brotherhood, you're in a soft gang. You'll notice the tests intensify when the group is under pressure. Scarcity reveals structure. When resources shrink, money, attention, status, weak leaders convert loyalty into tribute. 2. The workplace. As a corporate loyalty is rarely about mission. It's about protection rackets, wearing badges. We're a family here often means accept blurred boundaries, extra labor, and silence about dysfunction. Promotions can become loyalty rewards. Layoffs become loyalty punishments. The clientele is retaliation for autonomy. A healthy organization negotiates. A coercive one moralizes. After all we've done, you owe us. That's not leadership. That's debt collection with a logo. 3. Romance and the privatized tribunal. Loyalty traps don't always look masculine. Sometimes it's emotional jurisdiction. If you love me, you'll cut them off. If you're loyal, you'll prove it. Now your relationship isn't intimacy. It's compliance audits. Isolation is the oldest technique because it works. Once your outside network weakens, the other person becomes your only courtroom, your only witness, your only source of truth. And when a single person controls your emotional supply lines, you're no longer a partner, you're a dependent. 4. Family, the original kingdom. Families can be the most dangerous loyalty systems because they're shielded by tradition. We don't do that at this family is not a value. It's a border wall. In unhealthy families, loyalty means preserving the image, protecting the tyrant, and sacrificing the dissenter. If the cost of belonging is silence, you're not in a family system. You're in a dynasty protecting its throne. The ancient pattern, loyalty as a weapon. History doesn't need names to teach the lesson. Leaders consolidate power by demanding oaths, public allegiance, and displays of submission. Oaths are useful because they convert a private choice into a public identity. Once it's public, leaving becomes shameful, and shame is a leash you can tug from a distance. That's why loyalty demands escalate in stages. Small declaration, small sacrifice, larger sacrifice to prove it. isolation from alternatives, punishment when you resist. It's not random, it's conditioning. These tactics work because most men want to be seen as honorable. Predators exploit that by redefining honor as obedience. The more you chase the label loyal, the easier you are to steer, because now your identity is a handle they can grab. Your job isn't to become paranoid. Your job is to become unownable. A man whose agreements are explicit, whose boundaries are enforced, and whose exit is always possible. Loyalty demands don't come from love. They come from hierarchy maintenance. Every human group, tribe, office, friend circle, family, creates status lanes, and the fastest way to enforce status is to control who's in and who's out. The loyalty ritual is just the modern uniform. Same old chain, new paint. This is why your rational arguments fail when loyalty is invoked. You're not debating logic. You're standing in a dominance ceremony where the point is to see if you'll kneel. In primitive terms, groups survive by punishing defectors and rewarding conformers. That's not moral, that's biological accounting. So when someone frames you as disloyal, they aren't trying to win an argument. They're trying to trigger the ancient fear of exile. They're pressing a button that predates your opinions. Predators understand this instinctively. They don't need to be smart. They just need to be shameless. How this shows up in the real world. Same pattern, different costume. 1. The crew and the street logic. In any tight male group, loyalty is currency, and currency attracts counterfeiters. The lighter or loudest man will demand declarations, punish neutrality, and treat dissent as betrayal. The goal isn't unity, it's centralization. If you can't disagree without consequences, you're not in a brotherhood, you're in a soft gang. You'll notice the tests intensify when the group is under pressure. Scarcity reveals structure. When resources shrink, money, attention, status, weak leaders convert loyalty into tribute. 2. The workplace. As a corporate loyalty is rarely about mission. It's about protection rackets, wearing badges. We're a family here often means accept blurred boundaries, extra labor, and silence about dysfunction. Promotions can become loyalty rewards. Layoffs become loyalty punishments. The clientele is retaliation for autonomy. A healthy organization negotiates. A coercive one moralizes. After all we've done, you owe us. That's not leadership. That's debt collection with a logo. 3. Romance and the privatized tribunal. Loyalty traps don't always look masculine. Sometimes it's emotional jurisdiction. If you love me, you'll cut them off. If you're loyal, you'll prove it. Now your relationship isn't intimacy, it's compliance audits. Isolation is the oldest technique because it works. Once your outside network weakens, the other person becomes your only courtroom, your only witness, your only source of truth. And when a single person controls your emotional supply lines, you're no longer a partner, you're a dependent. 4. Family, the original kingdom. Families can be the most dangerous loyalty systems because they're shielded by tradition. We don't do that at this family is not a value. It's a border wall. In unhealthy families, loyalty means preserving the image, protecting the tyrant, and sacrificing the dissenter. If the cost of belonging is silence, you're not in a family system. You're in a dynasty protecting its throne. The ancient pattern, loyalty as a weapon. History doesn't need names to teach the lesson. Leaders consolidate power by demanding oaths, public allegiance, and displays of submission. Oaths are useful because they convert a private choice into a public identity. Once it's public, leaving becomes shameful, and shame is a leash you can tug from a distance. That's why loyalty demands escalate in stages. Small declaration, small sacrifice, larger sacrifice, to prove it. Isolation from alternatives, punishment when you resist. It's not random, it's conditioning. These tactics work because most men want to be seen as honorable. Predators exploit that by redefining honor as obedience. The more you chase the label loyal, the easier you are to steer, because now your identity is a handle they can grab. Your job isn't to become paranoid. Your job is to become unownable. A man whose agreements are explicit, whose boundaries are enforced, and whose exit is always possible. The final cage isn't built by them. It's built by the version of you that needs to be seen as good. That mask is expensive. It forces you to stay in rooms you've outgrown, tolerate disrespect so you can feel mature, and accept unfair terms so nobody can accuse you of being cold. The world doesn't reward that mask. It uses it because it turns your conscience into a steering wheel other people can grab. This chapter is the execution, not of your morals, of your need to be approved for having them. The good man mask, what it really is. You think it's character. It's often permission-seeking dressed as virtue. It has predictable behaviors. You explain yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You negotiate with disrespect, so you can say you tried. You absorb costs to avoid being labeled selfish. You keep access open because ghosting is wrong, even when the person is abusive with contact. You confuse patience with strength. The mask's real function is social safety. If I'm good, I'll be safe. That's the childhood bargain. In adult power dynamics, it's a liability. Predatory people don't see good and feel inspired. They see good and think. Soft boundaries, high guilt sensitivity, easy to tax. The switch from being good to being sovereign. Sovereignty is not cruelty. It's non-negotiable self-ownership. A sovereign man doesn't ask, "Do they think I'm fair?" He asks, "Are the terms acceptable? Is there retaliation for disagreement? Can I leave without punishment? Does this alliance make me stronger or smaller?" The good man tries to be understood. The sovereign man tries to be free. This is where identity death happens, because the old you relied on external validation to feel legitimate. The new you doesn't. The death process, it's not emotional, it's operational. Identity doesn't die in a single speech. It dies through repeated behavior that proves a new truth. 1. Stop performing explanations. Explanations are a plea for a fair trial. Predatory dynamics don't offer fair trials. Your new language is short. No, not happening. I'm stepping back. This is my decision. When you reduce words, you reduce hooks. 2. Let them misunderstand you. The old you panics at mislabeling. Disloyal, selfish, arrogant, cold. You rush to correct it. That's the leash. The new you accepts a brutal fact. Their interpretation is not your jurisdiction. Let the label exist. Labels only hurt when you kneel to them. 3. Stop paying the exit tax. They will try to charge you for leaving. Guilt rage, smear campaigns. After all I've done. Manufactured emergencies, final conversations. A sovereign refuses the tax. You exit with a clean statement and closed doors. No closure meetings. No late-night emotional hearings. No re-entry for nostalgia. 4. Replace. Loyalty to people with loyalty to standards. This is the real replacement identity. Your standards become the king. Mutual respect, reciprocity, without invoices, permission to disagree, boundaries, honored freedom to leave. If a person violates the standards, The relationship is downgraded or ended without moral panic. That's not heartless. That's selection. The new identity, a man who cannot be owned. The end state is simple. You become hard to manage because you're hard to shame. You don't threaten. You don't announce boundaries like a performance. You don't seek consensus for your decisions. You quietly enforce consequences. That's why this chapter matters. You can learn every tactic in the world, but if your identity still worships being the loyal good guy, you'll keep walking back into cages voluntarily. Next is the final warning. What happens when you ignore these signals and the one rule that keeps you unownable? Here's the part most men refuse to accept. The people who demand loyalty aren't asking for partnership. They're asking for property rights. They don't want your respect. They want your automatic compliance. They don't want your presence. They want your availability. They don't want your support. They want your silence when it matters. And the longer you stay inside a loyalty trap, the more your identity fuses to it, until leaving feels like tearing off skin. That's how ownership works, not with chains, with habit. The end game. If you ignore the signals, when you ignore the three signals, declarations, ledgers, isolation, this is what the arc looks like. They normalize entitlement. Your time becomes theirs to schedule. Your attention becomes theirs to summon. They rewrite your instincts. You start anticipating their moods, editing your speech, delaying your no. They punish autonomy. Every boundary becomes a fight. Every independent move becomes disloyal. They shrink your world. You lose options, allies, and self-trust. Now you need them, even when you hate them. They replace your identity. You stop being a man with direction and become a man with assignments. At the end, you're not loyal. You're domesticated. And the cruel joke is this. Once you're domesticated, they respect you less. Because the act of surrender signals weakness, and weakness invites contempt. The more you try to earn safety through obedience, the more you teach them you can be pushed. The one rule, write it into bone. Never accept a relationship where your ability to leave is punished. That rule alone will save you years. Because the ability to leave, without smear, without guilt rituals, without retaliation, is the difference between alliance and captivity. A true bond can survive your no. A true bond can survive distance. A true bond doesn't require you to kneel publicly to remain in good standing. If leaving triggers warfare, you weren't in a relationship. You were in a regime, the elite. Standard, contracts, not vows. You don't live by vows. You live by standards. Vows are romantic. Standards are protective. A vow says, I'm loyal no matter what. A standard says, I'm loyal as long as the terms stay honorable. That's not cynicism. That's governance. Every serious man eventually learns this. You can love deeply and still keep your sovereignty intact. You can be generous and still refuse the ledger. You can be calm and still be unmovable. Final warning, because you'll be tempted. They will try to pull you back with one of three lures. Nostalgia, remember what we used to be. Translation, return to the old terms. Crisis, I need you right now. Translation, suspend your boundaries. Shame, so this is who you are. Translation, come back under control. The correct response is boring. Boredom is power. You repeat your decision once, then you disappear from the battlefield. A predator can't negotiate with a wall. Do this today, quietly. Identify the one relationship where loyalty is used as a weapon. Stop one form of access, your time, your emotional labor, your immediate replies, Watch the reaction. Escalation is your proof. Then enforce the rule. No punished exits. You don't need permission to be sovereign. You need the spine to accept the cost of being misunderstood, because the price of sovereignty is social discomfort. The price of compliance is your life.